This episode contains themes that may be too intense for younger listeners. You've been warned. I recommend that only adults listen to this episode.
It looked like a dog, you know. They call it like the dog man or something. I mean, this thing was built. I mean, this thing was rugged. I mean, it's something I wouldn't want to tangle with it, you know.
One night, I'm sitting there and I had a dead body in my bed.
Yes, that's when I started hearing the doors opening and closing and then walking through the house.
Mom was going up the steps and I was behind her. That light turned on. We get up there and she's freaking out because it turned on. We get up there and it's not even plugged into the wall.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methencamp. On tonight's show, we have Cindy. She reached out to me on TikTok, but we've known each other for quite a while. Cindy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Cindy. I actually know John from going to school with him, so known him for a very long time because we've been out of school for a couple weeks.
Just a couple.
Just a few. So I grew up in a house that was very haunted. I'll start from like when my mom and dad first moved in there. My mom she thought it was a dream, but she's really not sure because she'd taken a nap, and when she woke up, during her sleep, she had this dream or visitation or whatever it was where a ghost family had told them that was their house, but they would share it with her and the family as long as they stayed downstairs, and the ghost would stay upstairs. And then when she woke up, like all the doors in the house were open, and she was the only one home, like to the outside, everywhere. And so she always wondered about that. And everything that has ever happened in that house has been upstairs or the stairway and the landing at the bottom of the stairs.
So did you guys like stay downstairs, or did you say, this is my house and we're going to do what we're going to do?
For the most part, we stayed downstairs because it was just basically me and my brother and my parents. So we had a 5-bedroom house, and the rooms were really big. So the upstairs had 3 rooms, and the downstairs, Dad had made it in one of the bedrooms into like 2 bedrooms. So then later on, he ended up taking that wall down and just having the downstairs back to 2 bedrooms downstairs. But so me and my brother each had a bedroom upstairs also. But I'm going to start from like when I was little up until like the last experience I had in that house, because both of my parents have passed, so that house is like no longer in our family.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to go in chronological order, so it's easier to keep track of where you're at. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So Mama told me that when I was a baby and would sleep in the crib in their room, every morning when Dad would leave for work, like about 10-15 minutes after he'd leave, she says I would wake up and I would just be laying in the crib laughing. And she said she always felt like something was in the room, but she was always afraid to turn around and look. She says, you were always laughing and act like you're having a good time. She goes, but you were doing this before you should have been laughing and stuff. She's like, you were like not even a month old and you're laying there laughing. And so I don't know, but I had a weird thing that happened that made me think about this too, because my second cousin had a 2 or 3-year-old little boy, and I was pushing him on the swing at the park, and he was laughing and stuff, and he looks at me and goes, I used to play with you when you was a baby. And I said, what? And he says, I used to play with you when you was a baby. And I said, really? I said, where was that? He's like, in your crib.
And
You
how
know,
old was he?
he was like 2.5, 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it just like, when he said it, it gave me chills, and it just like completely freaked me out because he was like dead serious.
Well, yeah, because especially if your mom had told you these stories and now all of a
Yeah.
sudden,
Yeah.
years later, you got this 2-year-old saying, hey, I know you
Yeah.
from when I played with you in the crib.
Yeah.
That is
So
freaky.
yeah. So I don't know. I just have always wondered if maybe I don't know. But you would like go up and you'd always hear like footsteps or things falling down the steps.
And would there
And
be anything like actually on the
no,
steps or just hear it?
no, you just hear it
Oh, wow.
like all the time. And I don't know of anything, any history to the house that anything like had happened where somebody got killed or anything like that or died in the house. Um, I honestly think it's more the land than it is the actual house. But
What makes you think it's the land?
because the house was built in the 60s and my parents bought it in the 70s. And the people that lived there that they bought it off of, they just moved. So it wasn't like, you know, so I don't know. I don't know of anybody dying or anything in that house.
Right.
But I mean, it could have happened. I just don't know. Let's see. When I was about, I would say 5, 6 years old, because we never like the bedrooms upstairs we didn't have bedrooms up there until we were a little bit older. And basically the big bedrooms upstairs just had like stuff stored in them. So I'd went up by myself and I went up to try to see if I could find something to give my mom for Mother's Day. I just up there messing around and looking through stuff. And I could remember because I was like dancing around and stuff. And like a 8-ball for like a pool table went whizzing by my ear. And we didn't even have a pool table. So
Really? So like
yeah,
this, it just manifested. Like was
yeah,
there other balls, like
no,
billiard balls up there?
no, like,
Holy cow.
yeah. And I mean, at that time, I didn't even know what a pool ball was. I just remembered a black and an 8 on it and it flying past me. And I was like, what the hell? And that freaked me out. And I went running downstairs and Mom was like, you're not supposed to be upstairs. But,
So
and then like,
did your mom like not want you up there because of the dream?
I'm not sure. It was just one of those things that we were told not to be up here. And I don't know if it was because of the dream or just because it basically was storage. It wasn't,
Right.
anything up there at the time. But what was weird is my brother was always afraid of my bedroom and I was always afraid of his. And his bedroom was like at the top of the stairs. So like when you would be going up the stairs, you could look directly into his room.
Do you remember what about his room, made you scared?
It just had like a weird feel to it. Like,
Right.
It wasn't anything in particular. It just didn't feel right. The energy or whatever.
And this is when you were still like 5,
it's
6
still
years
that
old,
way.
or
It's been
still
that way
that
my
way?
whole entire life. Yeah.
Okay.
The last time I was in that house, I just never liked that room, and he was the same way about my room.
Maybe it was just you thought he had cooties.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, there was some weird things that happened in there. Like, he had this really small closet, and he kept like records in there. And if I would go in that room, the closet door was always open, but it would slam shut. Or it would go.
Just when you walked in, it would never did it on its own any other time.
It did it to my nephew later on when he was up there. But
That's weird. It's almost like whatever was there was like, okay, I'm okay with your brother being in there, but nobody else.
yeah.
That's freaky. That's freaky.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some more of the other.
So
Well,
how many other? I mean, so everybody that lived there had experiences.
oh, everybody, and even my friends, and other family members that, like my cousin and then my best friend, they both seen somebody, not at the same time, when they opened the door to go upstairs, that was walking from my bedroom across the hall to the other room. And they both described it the same. It was like somebody in white, like an old man with really long hair.
Really? So they saw a full body apparition. It wasn't just like a shadow or something.
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't even like the same time. It was like years apart. In fact, Wendy just told me about seeing that like last week.
Really? No,
Yeah.
she just told you about it. She didn't see it last week. She just told you about it
Yeah,
last
she just told me about it last week. And if she had told me, I forgot, because I mean, there's been so many things that happen. My mom was really like crafty, and she crocheted and stuff. So she had these Cupid dolls, and she had crocheted like a dress for it. And then my dad did electrician work and stuff. So he had made a lamp and put the Cupid doll on it. So it was like the lampshade came out of its head, and that type of stuff, and it was on a heart wood thing. And the one that I'm going to tell you about was, she had given it to me when I was a kid, and somehow it ended up being in my brother's room after he moved out, because my brother is like 5 years older than me. So my great grandma had passed away, and my great grandpa was coming home from Florida, and he was going to stay with us for a few days. And he was like late 80s. So mom and dad was going to go upstairs and sleep while he was in town. And mom was going up the steps, and I was behind her. And all of a sudden, because like I said, when you're going up the stairs, you could look directly into that room. That light turned on. We get up there, and she's freaking out because it turned on. We get up there, and it's not even plugged into the wall.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
So
So
did it turn off before you got back to or before you
No,
got
it was on. Like
you were looking
Dad,
at it and it was on and unplugged?
yes. And it was not on until we were like halfway up the steps, and we seen it turn on, because it was literally in our line of sight going up the steps. Dad took the light bulb out.
That's the only way you could get it to go off, was to take the light bulb out?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, it wasn't even plugged in, so what else are you gonna do?
Burn it? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what he did. He probably broke it and threw it away. I don't know.
I'm thinking that's going into the next bonfire is what I'm thinking. Yeah. And that bonfire's right now.
Yeah. And my dad's one of those that he always acted like he didn't believe in any of that type of stuff. And my mom's side of the family is more, everybody in my family have seen ghosts, or different weird things have happened. So it's not uncommon for us to sit down and tell ghost stories or things like that. But my mom's best friend, she was born with a heart defect, and I was like 8 years old when she passed away. And Mom and Dad had this old chair that sat in their bedroom. And Dad got up one morning to get ready for work. And this was after Carolyn had passed away. And he seen her sitting in that chair. And for him to have seen it and to even like acknowledge it, because he was freaked out about it, and that chair disappeared, and I have never seen it since.
So he's thinking the same way I am. We could burn that thing.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. I don't know if he like took him to the dump or what, because it just like, and the reason why I was even told about it, because when I came home from school, I said something to Mom, because the chair wasn't in there, because my mom had gotten sick when I was like in second grade, so she was terminally ill. So when I went into
do you
the room,
think that changed your dad's outlook on the paranormal then?
he would never acknowledge it. As a matter of fact, when I asked him about it later on in life, he just, I don't know what you're talking about, or, whatever. He was just not one of those people that wanted to talk about stuff like that.
But I think that's kind of a generational thing, because,
yeah.
Like even people our age,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to get people to talk about this stuff unless they're really interested, or they've had an encounter and they're not afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that like our parents and older who, if I talk about this, everybody's going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah. I know, like, back when we were in school and stuff, that you didn't talk about it because that's the stigma,
Right.
I don't know. You're going to hear my grandbaby in the background probably. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, I'll tell you another story about my mom and her best friend. When I was about 5-6 years old, my mom was in Minden at my grandparents' house, which is on the other side of Salina. And my mom's best friend Carolyn was at her house in Piqua, and she went out to get the mail, and she had a heart attack and fell on her porch. And at the same exact time that had happened, my mom and my grandparents were sitting in their living room, and they had a like enclosed porch attached to their house, and they thought a car had wrecked into their porch because it shook and it made such a loud noise, and they don't know why, but it was like, come to find out, Carolyn had a heart attack and fell on her front porch right about that same exact time that had happened. And they never did figure out what happened to make their garage or their front porch shake like that.
Holy cow. Do you think that you said your mom, she believed in all this stuff and that side of her family?
Yeah.
Do you think that that maybe this stuff was happening because she was so open to it happening?
It's a good possibility. And with all honesty, like my great grandma, she used to see spirits all the time in her house. And just like in general, she was like a medium type person or whatever you call it. It just seems like a lot of the people on my mom's side of the family can tell you stories about, seeing spirits or having weird things happening to them.
Right. So, weird question. Are you RH negative?
No, but my best friend is, and she's here. Was going to tell you some stuff, but she's keeping the grandbaby busy.
I just asked because there's this theory that people that are RH negative are a little more open to the paranormal and UFOs and everything. So I was curious.
Yeah. No, I'm not, but I don't know if anybody else in the family is,
But obviously, this is kind of a generational thing because everybody on your mom's side seems to have these kind of interactions.
hmm
I had a question about the house. Did it ever feel threatening?
no. But there's a couple other stories I can tell you while I'm thinking about it, if you don't mind me jumping back into it.
No, go
Um,
ahead.
So I was like 13 years old, and I wake up because my doorknob is just shaking. And my bedroom door would not stay open. Like it would always shut. You could prop something in front of it and it would shut. You know, it was just weird. But anyway, my doorknob is just shaking and I'm thinking it's my brother, you know, rattling it and crap, trying to scare me. Because it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting there yelling at him, you know, leave me alone, quit messing around. I know it's you. And this is going on for about, I don't know, 5 minutes. And finally, I get up and I sneak over to the door. I have my hand on the doorknob and it is literally shaking in my hand. And I yank that door open and there's nobody there. My brother was outside hunting for worms, night crawlers, and stuff to go fishing.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was like something was trying to get in.
I don't know if it was trying to get in or trying to get my attention.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. Because I mean, it was loud. It wasn't, and it was like just rattling the knob, you know, it wasn't, other than that, there was nothing. And like because I literally ran through it to get out or to get downstairs, I didn't feel anything or anything like that. And I didn't feel like anything was chasing me or anything like that.
Right.
My last experience in that house was after my dad passed away last March. And so we were, you know, going through stuff, trying to get what we wanted out of the house and all that. And the one room that was across the hall that was never a bedroom, it was just kind of where we could stored whatever we had up there. And one of my friends that I worked with, it was just me and her in the house. And there was some stuff I thought she'd want. So we went into my brother's old bedroom and she's like, "Ooh, it does feel creepy in here." Because I told her, I was like, "This room creeps me out." And then we went into that other room and was going through stuff. And we both just looked at each other and she's like, "Let's go." And like by the time we got to the door, we was running down the stairs because it just felt like something, just, it was creepy feeling it. And I've never, you know, even in all the years that I lived in that house, I never felt that up there. It was just
So how
like,
long had you been out of the house when this happened?
about 9 years.
Maybe he was mad because you've been gone for so long.
It could have been. Because my dad, after mom died in 2014, so he ended up getting in a relationship later on that year, and he ended up moving in with her, but he kept the house.
This is the time in the show when most people would have an ad break for their sponsors. I don't have any sponsors. So if you'd like to support the show, you can do it a couple ways. One, you can go over to TikTok, subscribe to my channel, and you'll get some perks over there, such as early access to all the episodes before they come out, some fun little stickers to use during the chat, and a shout out before the next show. The other way you can do it is by buying me a coffee. Go over to buymeacoffee.com. Look for Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. You can make a small donation there. Eventually there will be upgrades to that, where you'll get the same perks as you do on TikTok. Thank you for your support.
But nobody lived there for like almost 10 years.
Really?
He'd go over, he'd go over every so often and mow the yard and that type of stuff, watch TV or whatever, but he never went upstairs or anything like that.
So maybe they got used to being alone and it's like, oh crap,
could
people
have
are back.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just,
Is this house still in your family?
No. Right now it's just setting.
Okay. It was just a question. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking
Oh no, you're fine.
this might
You're
be
fine.
cool if I'm back in town, we could go over and visit this place. But
Yeah. Yeah. I've always wanted to do like NEP or whatever they call it, where they electronic things.
yeah, with like the voice recorders and stuff, trying to
Yeah.
get EVPs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many things. I'm trying to remember everything because, you know, I,
So what um
yeah,
so after seeing, was it your aunt in the rocking chair with your dad?
it was my mom's best friend that
Okay.
he'd seen in that chair.
Did your
Uh,
dad ever say he had anything else happen in there?
no. And if he had, he would have never admitted to it or said anything.
Right.
Um, Another experience with Carolyn, and you would like, she was just a big character and, just goofball and stuff. Um, we had came home from her funeral and mom answered the phone rings and mom answers it. And like her face just goes white and she couldn't hardly talk. And, this was back when, people would call collect. And so anyway, she gets this phone call and it's Carol calling to see if she will accept the charges. And it ended up it was my cousin Carol, which had never called collect or had never called the house. It was so funny because she just like completely like floored her, and we got to laughing because that would have been something Carol would have done, like had Carol do that.
I'm gonna make her pay for one more phone call.
That's right. There's so many things that have happened, and it's just like I don't even know what else to talk about or can think of anything until like it pops in my mind later on. But those were
Right.
the
And that happens a lot because I'll get
yeah.
people, they'll come on the show and then, they'll text me or email me and be like, "Oh man, I forgot to tell you about this." And that happens. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
We still got I mean, we've been recording for about 30 minutes, so if you want to add in that any of that other stuff, you can.
Okay. Well, I'll start with, because I'm one of these people that I don't remember dreams. And very rarely do I dream or that I know that I dream. And even like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I remember the dream, by the time I get up, I don't like I'm trying to think of what it was.
Right.
So this is a different story than I told you earlier. When I left my first husband, he was an alcoholic, and if he was drinking beer, he was fine. If he was drinking whiskey, he was psychotic. So the night that
That's how
I
my
left
dad
him,
was.
yeah, the night that I left him, he was pretty drunk and I had went to a concert with my friend Rhonda and her husband, and him had went out drinking. So it started, we lived in Piqua at the time, and it started all the way from Bradford to Piqua. Like, he about made me wreck the car and all kinds of stuff because he's grabbing a hold of the steering wheel and trying to drive it into a tree or, that type of stuff. So my son was like 2 years old, but he was at my parents' house. And so we get home, and I'm thinking, as drunk as he is, he's going to be passed out. And when he's passed out, I'm going to get the truck keys, and then I'm going to leave in my car. But my thinking at that time, because I was, my early 20s, is I know how he is. He'll get up and get in the truck. And then I'm thinking he's either going to kill himself or cause an accident and possibly kill somebody else. So I was waiting for him to pass out. Well, he didn't pass out right away like I thought he would. And he come, and I was like laying on the couch, and he jumped over the back of the couch and was like trying to choke me and that type of shit. So when I finally was able to get away, he had me like trapped in the house for a little bit. Well, we had these really long windows that went almost all the way down to the floor, and they were old windows, and this is like right around Thanksgiving, so it's like freezing cold out. And he pushed me, and as hard as I hit that window, I don't know how I didn't go through it. It just, I just have never figured that out. So, I filed for divorce and all that type of stuff. And I don't know, it's probably 6 months later. I have this dream about my aunt, and I can even telling it, I can picture it, like the colors, everything. And she had died when I was 15 from breast cancer. She's 32 when she died. And in this dream, we're walking in this field, and the colors of the flowers and everything is like so vivid. It's not even like colors that I could describe from flowers around here, or colors. It was just, I don't even
It's
know
a
how to
very
explain it.
vivid
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah. And I'm talking to her, and I start to tell her that I'm divorced, and I start to tell her, or that I'm going through a divorce, and start to tell her what happened. And she goes, I know, I was there. And anytime I tell that to somebody, they get chills. And it, like, even me saying it gives me the chills. And I really think that she was what kept me from going through that window.
Very well could be,
And she had been abused. As a matter of fact, when I was 5 years old, we had stopped at her house, and I begged, me and my cousin, because she was like 9 months younger than me. We begged for me to spend the night, and they didn't. She was saying no at first, and then she ended up letting me stay. Well, her thing, he ain't even worth calling a person. He came home drunk as shit in the middle of the night and like beat the hell out of her. And it was only, I was like 5 years old. And
Jesus.
it's the very first and only experience I've ever had of that, growing up. And when she like started losing her hair and stuff, the doctors was trying to figure out why she had these big knots on her head. And it was because he would take pop bottles, the glass ones, and hit her upside the head and stuff like that.
Oh, geez. So being a survivor of that, of abuse, maybe that's the reason she was there, to trying to protect you.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It very well could be. You hear about people talking about their relatives coming in times of need, or times of joy. So very well could have been.
Yeah, because it never made sense to me how I didn't go through that window, because this is an old house, and they were thin windows anyway.
My sister, when she was I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, like she barely kicked one of those plate glass windows and broke it. So yeah, they break really easy.
Yeah. And it was like probably a negative 20 that night. It was freezing cold. So
it should have been even more brittle.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it isn't cool that what was going on at the time, but it's pretty amazing that you have this dream later on, and you're able to put 2 and 2 together like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the fact that, like, I can't even remember, like, in my dream what I was wearing and all this stuff. So it's like I can remember this detailed, and I couldn't tell you a dream that I had this week. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that
So this had a profound effect on you.
yeah.
So maybe it was a message more than just a dream.
Yeah, I think it was a visitation personally.
Yeah, very well could be.
And then the other dream, which is what I had told you about earlier, I had a lot of issues with getting pregnant and then like carrying babies and stuff. I've been pregnant 3 times. My son he's the only one that I was able to give birth to, and he was born 9 weeks premature. And he only weighed like 2 pounds when he was born. And then my last pregnancy, I was early 30s, and I kept feeling like I was pregnant, and I would take a pregnancy test and it would say negative. And I had a really bad sinus infection, and I went to the doctor, and he wanted to put me on, I think it was a Z-Pack or something. Anyway, whatever it was, he said it was highly, would cause birth defects, like even if you just like touched it. So he was like, I want to make sure you're not pregnant. So I did a pregnancy test in the doctor's office, and it came back negative. And then I ended up being pregnant, not knowing it, but I would have a dream, and it started in October every single night. And I've told a lot of people about this when it was happening, because I was like, I don't even understand why I'm having this dream, and I keep thinking I'm pregnant and I'm not pregnant, and and I remember it, but it's the same exact thing every night. I would see like somebody holding a baby, but all I could see was their arm. I never seen who it was or anything like that. And the baby, I would see the back of its head and pink pajamas.
So
And
the arm, would you say it looked feminine or masculine?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
It was just like I would see just basically like, how you're holding a baby and you got the baby tucked in your elbow type thing. That's all I would see was that arm, that part of the arm.
Okay.
Um,
I
but
was
it
just
was
thinking
always,
maybe it was the same guardian angel.
yeah, it possibly could be, but it wasn't my aunt,
Okay.
because she was like, my Aunt Sharon was like really little and petite, and like I don't remember exactly what the arm looked like other than how it was always holding the baby, but I knew it wasn't like real petite either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, I ended up having an ectopical pregnancy, and when I had that in December, and when I had it, I was at home. My son was 6 years old. My husband at the time, which is not the same husband, was at work, and he worked second shift, and I couldn't get up off the toilet. I was just for almost 2 hours, but I didn't know what to do because we lived clear in Lima, so we was like over 2 hours from my family, and my son was little, and I was like, I can't call an ambulance because what am I going to do with a 6-year-old, So when I finally was able to get up, I ended up driving from Lima to Bradford because my husband, yeah, exactly. When I think about it now, I think, how retarded was I? And
I
this
mean,
was on
you
a
drove
Friday.
by like 3 hospitals on your way there.
I know, but my son was like all into deer hunting and that type of stuff. And my brother and my dad and my husband at the time, it was round hunting season, and they was going to go down to the cabin that my brother owns down in southern Ohio. So that was their plan, and they were going to be gone for the whole weekend. So that was my original, what I was supposed to do that night was to take him to Bradford. I was going to stay with Mom. And so I get to Bradford, they go ahead and, leave and go hunting and everything. And Monday morning, and, I'm still having a lot of issues, but it's just the way I am. I go to work Monday morning at 6 o'clock, and I call my doctor's office at 8 o'clock when they opened up and stuff. And he's like, I want you to leave right now and go and get blood work done. And then I want you in my office. So I did that, and it come back, in the blood work that I was pregnant. And, he's like, you have, you're bleeding and everything, but you're still pregnant because your cervix is still shut. So you're not, or closed or whatever. So you're not having a miscarriage. He's like, so I'm going to put you on bed rest. And then Wednesday, I want you to go and have another blood test and be back in my office on Thursday. Well, Tuesday night, I ended up in the hospital. And yeah. So 90% of the time, when your fallopian tube ruptures, it kills you. And I know when my fallopian tube ruptured, it was on Friday. And Wednesday morning, they came in and they said, there's obviously something wrong. Because the same thing, they were like, your cervix is still closed, so you haven't had a miscarriage, but there's, definitely something wrong. So Wednesday, when they done the blood work the third time, the pregnancy hormone had dropped. So he's like, you're going to have to terminate the pregnancy because there's something wrong. And so he's like, we can either do it surgical or we can give you something in your IV. And I was like, you're doing it surgical. So, which is a good thing, because it wasn't until he went in that he realized my fallopian tube had ruptured.
Oh, wow.
And not only I had my fallopian tube ruptured, but by that time I was so full of infection that alone could have killed me.
Yeah, you could have went septic.
Yeah. So, I personally think that I was carrying a girl, and it did end up being that when I started having that dream in October, that was about how long I had been pregnant.
Wow.
And I had that dream all the way up until they took her out of me.
Oh, wow.
And I've never had the dream since. But it was just weird that I'd have that dream every night. And I kept, I told everybody, my best friend, I told my husband, I'm like, I have this damn dream every night. And I just don't get it, and at that
Yeah,
time.
because it's not like, that's a very specific dream. It's not just random, that's a very specific dream to have every night.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then my best friend, we've been friends since I was in second grade. I don't know if you remember Wendy or not. She was a couple years older than us. When I ended up later on having to have a hysterectomy, and I came home from the hospital still kind of out of it from the drugs and everything, and my phone rings and I answer it, not knowing who it is or why they're calling. And I answer the phone, who's pregnant? And here it was my best friend calling me to tell me that her first grandchild her daughter was pregnant with her first grandchild.
You just knew?
Yeah. I don't even, it just came out my mouth. It wasn't even something I thought of. It was just how I answered the phone. Didn't know it was her. Nothing.
Wow.
When I answered it. We do shit like that with each other all the time.
You're going to have to text me her last name, because I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
she didn't live there for a real, she lived there for a couple of years while we were in school. Then they moved to Greenville. But we was always friends all the way. In fact, she's here with me now. She was going to do this interview with me, but the Willow, the baby, is kind of little. She's tired, so she's a little cranky. So that's
So
why we're staying at the
she
park.
has paranormal encounters too.
Yeah, we always have. Like, well, I'll tell you another story about this, and probably should edit this out, but I'll tell it to you.
Well, I can stop recording for a minute.
Okay, why don't you do that?
When we stepped away, it was decided that Cindy would come back on with her friend Wendy. So be looking for part 2 of this episode. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at missandmullets@gmail.com. Have a good night, everyone.